Hello and welcome to the podcast Love, Life and Loss. Today we have Alexa joining us. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Would you like to introduce yourself for us, please?
Hello, everyone. I'm Alexa, and I'll be speaking about my daughter today.
Thank you. So, as I do with everybody else, would you like to start your story from the beginning and whatever that looks like to you, please?
Mhm. So it doesn't start with, I'm going to use her nickname, Miss AR. It starts many years before, but once I had her in 2015, it triggered a lot of unresolved trauma that I didn't think I had because I tucked it away. And basically, in this, when I was pregnant, um, I'd already had a stitch with my son and it was a success. Um, and I didn't really want to go through all of that again on my body. So I was taking the pessaries and they were keeping an eye on me through my whole pregnancy, plus being sick continuously. Um, and one day I went to work. I was in retail at that time, and I bent down, and all of a sudden I felt quite wet, and I thought, this is a bit different. And I went to the loo, and I thought, oh, I need to wear a pad, but I've got an appointment um, later on that afternoon. So I'll just go and tell my consultant what's going on. I wasn't feeling any pain or anything like that. But me being me back then, I was worrying about the business, not really worrying about myself. And at that time, because the shop was in a train station, I would have had to have waited for the next person to come in who came in at 2:30. And I left and went straight to the hospital. So I got to triage and I said, oh, something's not right. And they checked, the midwife checked, and she said, oh, Alexa, no, cervix still closed. All is fine. And I said, are you sure? Because I've got an appointment later with the consultant. Should I just wait and see them now? No, 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 no. Just come back for your appointment. You're fine. So I thought, okay, then I'm trusting this professional because she's telling me everything is fine. So what I decided to do from the hospital, my house is about 20 minutes away. So I decided to walk. So I walked home, put my stuff down, and I thought, oh, mum, do you want to come as well? She said, okay, then. My mum comes, and I decide, let me walk and pick up my son from nursery because that's on the way to the hospital, so we can all go together. So we do that. I pick him up and I go to the hospital. When I go in to see my consultant, and they check, the cervix is now open, and the consultant says, Alexa, I need to get a second opinion here because it's open. And I'm like, but I came here today, and she's like, what do you mean? So she goes to the lead and he double checks me. He's been a part of my son's care also, so he knows me. And he said, Alexa, the cervix is open. And I said, but I came here and the midwife told me everything is fine. He said, what do you mean? There's nothing in your notes. So he was like, you just meant to come straight here. But I said, I was listening to the midwife. She told me, I don't need to come there. Everything is fine. The cervix is closed. Obviously, knowing what I know now, the cervix can open very quickly. So it might have been very much closed then. But by the time I started walking everywhere, it opened. So straight away off I go to the ward, and I can't leave the bed now. I've got a bedpan next to me just in case the baby drops down the toilet, and I'm just there. Now I'm very traumatized at this time because this then brings back um, memories that I had thought wouldn't ever come back and I was fine, but in reality, I wasn't fine. So I started to cry. I was worried, thinking the worst. And another consultant that I know comes in and he brings about 15 student doctors in. And as he's walking, oh, do you mind if they come in? And he's walking with, I didn't know, is it the right thing to say no? So I ended up just allowing them to be in there. And I remember a student doctor, she was quite small, and she looked at me and she just gave me this gasp and put her hands to her mouth. And I realized that, right, this is not looking good. And he says, oh, yeah, we can see her sack and she's kicking and punching away there, but we can actually see her. And I thought, gosh, I've reached that benchmark now that
Wow.
I'm probably 6 centimeters where they wouldn't be able to do the stitch. And he said, no, I need to get a second opinion. And I said, what would you advise me to do? And he said, well, I would wait tonight because you're probably going to have her tonight. So I have to get this second opinion. And on the phone, the lead was like, no, 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 no. let's stitch. I am grateful for that because that gave me more time, but in reality, I shouldn't have had it done. Um, and it was a very weird experience now after this because they're prepping me for theatre and I've been down this road before. And all of a sudden, it was like this out of body experience. I can no longer talk and I can no longer move, but I can hear the two um, surgeons. They're talking and they've got the music. I remember it was capital extra, but I couldn't say anything, and they were just talking, talking, talking. And I thought, well, this is not right. I remember one of the nurses coming down with me, and at this point, I couldn't even see her, but the anaesthetist was really lovely, and he kept saying to me, you know, you might not be able to do this, Alexa, because she might come when we're trying to put the stitch in and all this. But he just kept talking to me. I could not say anything. And all of a sudden, they were going to start this to do the stitch. And I could hear another voice in the distance. I'm not sure who that person was. And she said, you can't do the stitch. Um, Alex's heart rate is low. And I'm thinking, okay, no, no, we can't. Absolutely not. You can't. Then her voice disappears. And from somewhere, I don't know where I get this strength from. I look to the left of me and I can see the nurse and she's praying in the corner. And all of a sudden, I focus on her and I could speak and say, I'm cold. And they're like, oh, it's like I was never in the room. And then they put on this, I can't remember what it's called. It's like the old, back in the day, bubble bags that we used to wear at school, those ones, and it kind of heats you up. And all of a sudden, everything starts to come back into real time again. And I start feeling like myself. And then they get the stitch done. Um, the stitch is then put in. I'm back on the ward. I'm feeling a bit sore, but I've been here before. I've had a stitch done. This is how I feel. I go home. And by this, I don't know that she's a girl just yet, but I come back for a scan to confirm it. And it's confirmed she's a girl. I tried to go to a restaurant to celebrate that, and then I start to get contractions. So I have to go home. So I get home and I don't last because this pain is not right. I need to get back to the hospital. And I get back to the hospital and I'm just crying. I'm like, she's coming now, she's coming now. And they're like, Alexa, let's just assess you first. And the midwife says, nope, she is coming. And this is when it starts to go in. It just gets extremely busy and I become invisible. All these people in the room, they're just talking amongst themselves. And I'm there crying silent tears and no one's paying attention. They link me up to the monitor. I can hear her heartbeat. It's it's really fast. I can hear it. And that kind of plays mind games with you because you think, well, yes, she's, her heartbeat, she's alive. Of course she's alive. But in reality, when they cut the stitch, that's when it's all going to change. I asked for my consultant, and she was doing a C-section. Someone had just had twins, and they page her, and she comes rushing. And what I love about this consultant is she always double checked with me no matter what. And she said, what do you want to do? And I said, she wants to be free. This stitch needs to be cut. And she said, you know what that means? If we cut it, she's not going to survive. And I said, I know. And she said, okay, I'll come back and see you after. And they double checked that and they cut the stitch. And so I can still hear her heart on the heart monitor and it's going and I'm there and it's busy. I'm on gas and air, but I'm practically just invisible because everyone's just working around me. And then I get asked a question. Then I get asked some questions around, would I like to see my baby? And I said, no. And I said no because I thought, is she going to be this red blob? Or is she going to be a baby? I'm not sure. Um, so I did decline. And I was never asked again if I wanted to see her. And once she was born, I then said, oh, can I cut the cord? No, 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 no. And she was whisked away out of the room. So,
Sorry, Alexa. Just to clarify, so you was asked if you wanted to see her before she was born.
yeah,
At that point is when you said no, but
yeah,
once she was born, they never asked you again. They just took her away.
They just took her away. They said, no, 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 no. So I thought, oh gosh, doesn't she look like a baby? Um, so she was whisked away and I was very poorly. And in my notes, it says I had pregnancy sepsis. I've never had sepsis, but that's what they wrote back then. Um, but I was quite poorly. But when I started to feel like myself again, I said, can you bring my baby, please? Because all those emotions, that motherly love was coming back. And I really wanted to see her, just have her with me. And I was told no. I was told no, she's been moved. And they have suites at the hospital. And they said, they're full. So you can't go down there yet because the suites are full. We've got another family in there. So here I am waiting for hours to be reunited with her when she could have just been brought back up to where I was. So when I walk into the room, there she is in a Moses basket, in a Moses basket. She's so tiny. And I just, all this love just rushed over. I need to protect her. And I just sat there holding her, looking at her. She had her arms folded, which I thought, gosh, this little girl's already got attitude already. You haven't even had life yet. But that really gave me comfort because I asked her, have you guys folded her arms? And they said, no, that's how she was born. And that gave me a lot of comfort just being with her. And a good friend of mine who is a children's nurse and a social worker. She comes in with a dark glass and she's like, right, picture time. And I was like, picture time. She said, no, no, we're going to take the pictures. And I'm so grateful to her because if it wasn't for her, I would not have one picture of her. So I'm truly grateful to her. And I guess being in the suite, you think that, okay, you've got time with your baby and, no one's going to rush you. But actually, in reality, it was a rush because I gave birth on a Friday. It's the weekend, and I remember this coming in, and she starts, here's some leaflets, sorry for your loss, and all of that. It's all kind of muddled up now because I'm not really hearing what people are saying, to be honest.
Mm.
And she gives me all these leaflets, and then she starts saying, right, so you can give your baby to science. Um, we can do the baby's burial, bury other babies. You won't know when the funeral is, but you'll get a cross at the end. And then my mind's now I'm getting frightened because I'm thinking, what are you trying to do with my baby? And then I'm thinking, all I got from that conversation was she can be given to science.
Yeah, gosh, that sounds so harsh.
And I remember saying, sorry, can't I bury my own baby? Oh, yes, yes, yes. But a lot of families don't want to do that. But I'm not every family. We're all individuals and we all want different things. Um, and she kind of, it wasn't what she was expecting me to say. And that's when I thought, absolutely not. Miss AR cannot stay in here. I need to remove her because now I'm worried they're going to give her body to science. So I stayed in there in this room for a while with her. And obviously, back then they didn't have the cold cots. Um, so I left her, but I was frozen to the spot because I'm thinking, gosh, I really can't leave her here. But I had to leave her there. And I remember shutting the door, thinking, oh my God, I'm leaving my baby. But I don't know what's going to happen to her here. I remember it was a hot day in July. I walk out in my nightie with my compression socks on and the memory box.
Mm.
That's all I have. I remember seeing two heavily pregnant women smoking outside the maternity. And I was like, ready just to shout at them. Then I realized, Lex, I don't even know what you've been through. And that's like, they want to smoke, that's up to them. That's not your business or your place to dictate to them what they should be doing. It's their bodies. And I remember walking to the car and just feeling like a zombie. Life was still going on. No one knows that everyone's skipping. It's hot. And here's me in compression shots and in a daze. I just lost my daughter the night before. And I get home and I kind of get tugged into this reality because it's this little person,
Mm.
mummy. And I'm like trying to switch from crying mummy to, oh yeah, everything's fine. But he actually sensed it and he's like, baby, baby, mummy, baby. And I remember, and he said that for a very long time. Um, and that was really tricky. And I remember my cousin coming over, she rushed over with flowers and she was hugging me. She said, I know you've just got home, but I wanted to be here when you got home, which was very, very important to me. I remember getting on the phone to the co-op I said, I need to call right now. I need to call. And I call and this lovely lady comes on the phone and I said, hi, they're going to give my baby to science and I need you to get her out of there. And the lady said, first of all, I want to say sorry for your loss. Let's start from the beginning. When did baby die? And I said, oh, she just died yesterday evening. And this woman was the most amazing woman I've ever spoken to, a total stranger, but she actually held me in that time. And she shared with me that she had lost her own baby 21 years prior. And she said to me, we're going to go and get her out straight away. And I thought, "Oh, gosh, she's not going to do that. She's just telling me that. So it just, just trying to reassure me she's not going to do that. So on the Monday, because I haven't seen any bereavement midwife at this point, on the Monday, I can still feel that I feel pregnant. I still feel pregnant. Um, so they said, come in, let's come back. And they take me back to the same bereavement suite I was in, the consultants there and the bereavement midwife. And they said, oh, do you want to go and see Miss AR? And I said, yeah. But in my mind, I'm thinking, well, she's probably still here, even though that woman had told me that she wouldn't be. But when they went to go and check, she was not there. And I realized, what this woman is so special. She listened to me and she removed my baby from a place I didn't think she was going to be safe in because they were going to give her to science. And she took my baby to be with other babies so she wouldn't be alone. And that gave me great comfort. So I just act kind of a bit like confused, like, oh, she's not here. I said, okay. Um, and she was taken very good care of. But the only thing is, I wanted the placenta to be checked. And unfortunately, again, somebody that was brand new did not do the correct paperwork. So that was just disposed of. So that really upset me because I thought, oh, because I haven't given her to science, this is why you've done that. So actually, I don't have any answers, but you know, I've got a shortening of the cervix and an infection or something. That's why the cervix opened. But I just wanted them just to check the placenta just in case something else came up. But that was taken away from me. And for me, I thought, how I've been treated, not all through my care, because my consultants were absolutely amazing. But with that midwife not letting me see her, and they actually used that against me when I did complain. And they said, well, you didn't want to see your baby. And basically, their argument was that, oh, she's been left in a cupboard with the aircon on. This is what was written to me.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, you've left my baby in a cupboard with the aircon on. And that just sent me into this spiral. I'm thinking, why is she in a cupboard?
Mm.
Don't we have a place for babies that have passed away? So it kind of made me think that, okay, so you're treating my baby like she's rubbish because you're telling me you have no better place than putting her into a cupboard. And for many, many years, I believed that she was left in a cupboard with the aircon on. And that was something that really stayed with me. I had counselling. My counsellor was amazing because not only with loss, I think people say, oh yeah, because you've lost, that's where all the grief's coming from. But it's everything, especially if you've had multiple losses. People don't even realize this. Not all of us are going to say we've had multiple losses. So you might just be hearing about this loss. Or when it's happened, you're hearing that somebody has lost. People's mindfulness around that, but everybody assumes. And I guess that was quite triggering with that because you're like, can you trust this person? Can you say it? And you just don't know who to trust in these situations when that happens. And we all have a choice. We don't have to disclose everything to everyone, and people should give you space to do that as you please. So yeah, so back to the counsellor. She wasn't meant to even counsel for about 6 months, but I begged after a week. I said, please, once I bury my baby, I'm not going to be in a good place. And she said, you know what? I'm going to start with you. So I started to cry. I was worried, thinking the worst. And another consultant that I know comes in and he brings about 15 student doctors in. And as he's walking, oh, do you mind if they come in? And he's walking with, I didn't know, is it the right thing to say no? So I ended up just allowing them to be in there. And I remember a student doctor, she was quite small, and she looked at me and she just gave me this gasp and put her hands to her mouth. And I realized that, right, this is not looking good. And he says, oh, yeah, we can see her sack and she's kicking and punching away there, but we can actually see her. And I thought, gosh, I've reached that benchmark now that
Wow.
I'm probably 6 centimeters where they wouldn't be able to do the stitch. And he said, no, I need to get a second opinion. And I said, what would you advise me to do? And he said, well, I would wait tonight because you're probably going to have her tonight. So I have to get this second opinion. And on the phone, the lead was like, no, 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 let's stitch. I am grateful for that because that gave me more time. But in reality, I shouldn't have had it done. And that was great. It
Hmm.
really, lots was going on. My mind was busy, but there was things that I needed to do. And it wasn't around her, it was more around what's in my environment, what's going to be good for me. I'm a people pleaser. Like I'm working. Work didn't care about me when my baby died. They called me, she died on a Friday. They called me on Monday. When you coming back to work? I don't know what to say. When you come back to work? When actually this all started when I was at work. So all of that was playing a major part. And I just decided that I'm going to quit my job, which I did because I went back to work too early because I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay my bills? No one's talking about bereavement leave for losing your child 2 days, 3 days. This is not right.
Mm-hmm.
And then having to take holiday. Well, I'm not on holiday. I'm grieving. Um, and going back to it when I shouldn't have. And basically, I collapsed at work. But when I see this video, I basically look like I'm drunk and I'm staggering all around the place. And I nearly hit my head on the corner of the skirting. And my manager at the time decided she wasn't going to call an ambulance. Oh, can't you call a family member?
What the hell?
Yeah. So with all of that, that played again. I'm traumatized. I'm grieving. Then I have work, not having any compassion, any empathy. And it just made me feel so angry until I realized something that I said when I gave birth was that I wanted to help other women. That was important for me that, they have a voice because I can articulate for myself, I can advocate all these different things I can do. But at that time, I was powerless and my voice didn't matter to them. They're just doing their job. I'm just another woman in labor. My baby has died. And that was that. Um, and I guess, we fast forward. And I guess when I was in my job, then I changed jobs. I started to work in education. And I thought, oh no, I need to start doing something that I'm passionate about. And my role with Sister Circle came up. Now, I never saw this job. It was only when I was speaking to someone about, oh no, there's this job. And would you be interested in it? And when I read it, it was like it was coming from my daughter. I was like, this is brilliant. This is so me. It's so me. And I thought, oh, I'm not going to get it. I'm just going to go with the flow and have the conversation and see what happens. And, we fast forward, I've been in this job now nearly 3 years. Um, and I'm the maternal mental health program lead in Sister Circle. And it's just meeting so many wonderful women. It's just been such a pleasure, hearing everybody's story, being able to be a part of their journey and empower them to advocate for themselves and not feeling that they need to be shut down or, they're questioning things that are not okay and are not right. Um, and I think that's just so powerful. So, if I didn't go through my own grief, I wouldn't be able to do it as passionate as they do it.
Yeah, and you wouldn't have that insight like that you
Mhm.
do have, because especially when it comes to baby loss, I don't think I've met anybody yet that hasn't said that it makes a huge difference getting support from somebody who's got lived experience. I think
Mhm.
so that it makes such a difference, and it will open them up to you to straight away near enough because they know that you get it. You know, I always say if you know, you know, and you know. So unfortunately, but your daughter is giving you a gift. Well, a gift that you already had. She's just shown you how to use that gift to help
Hmm.
other people.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's just
So,
nice meeting loads of wonderful women along the way that have been on this journey longer than me. And I think that's so lovely when we can all get together and see the amazing work that we are all doing.
and you are doing amazing work. You really are. Like, when I've also when I first met you, just and listen, I mean, listening to your story just now, I mean, I've heard it before, but I could really feel myself getting emotional listening to what you were saying, and it's there's so many layers to baby loss and to grief, and people really don't think about that and understand that, and the way you've broken it down. Hopefully, people listening now will get that,
Hmm.
because like you say, you've gone in, you've already got a young child at home, and then you've had to go in, giving birth
Hmm.
to a child, knowing that child isn't going to survive, then go home back to your living child and be a present parent for them, as you know,
Hmm.
and then having to work on top of that as well, and then the added layers that they've put on you as well, the pressures that they've put on you. They're, not giving you space to grieve at all. Unfortunately, it happens as well way too often
Yeah.
as well.
And still happening, times 2025 and people still don't have the correct bereavement time for mothers who have lost. It's really terrible, and people are taking holidays still. That
Mm,
shouldn't be happening. And if you don't know, get somebody in to train you.
yeah.
Compassion, empathy, you shouldn't have to be trained on that, but some people do. Get
Hmm.
somebody in to brief you.
Yeah, yeah, and do some research, or get legal advice as well, because the legalities behind it, and it's always changing, isn't it? So
Hmm.
since the year my son was born, 2020, they introduced child bereavement leave. So
Hmm.
child parental bereavement leave. So if you lose a child, then you can get 2 weeks, can't you? Before that, you did that. There was nothing
Nothing.
before. Literally, whatever your company chose to give you, which is on
Hmm.
average around 5 days for the whole year for any person that's close to you. Um, but yeah, so you get that 2 weeks now, and they are looking to change it as well, aren't they? To people, so that's people who have a baby who are either born sleeping after 24 weeks, or people who have a baby that's born breathing, doesn't matter the age of gestation. But they're now looking to change it, aren't they? So people that have early miscarriages, so babies that are born sleeping before 24 weeks, should still be entitled to that. They haven't done it yet, have they? From my understanding, I don't think they have.
No, I don't think they have done that yet.
No, but I mean, again, it's taken all of this time for people to even consider that as a loss for somebody, the pressure that somebody have to be under to go back to work, experiencing that, because it also still has a physical impact to our body as well as an emotional impact as well. So again, another layer that people don't take into consideration.
Hmm.
Oh,
I think I think when we talk about gestations, this is the problem here with workplaces because they don't understand that, they don't realize actually, 14, 20, their baby's just tiny. But they would never, they're not looking at, oh, actually, no, you have lost a baby. And this is the problem while, loads of women are getting dismissed. So maybe that needs to be something that going forward, people start going into the workplace and we're just showing them what a baby looks like at 14, 10, 12, just going through it so they're a little bit more educated
mm-hmm.
around that.
And it's impactful. So I try to, when I go and do talks and things, and want to be able to go into organizations and educate them, I do use a little bit of a shock factor when I'm doing things. So when I was pregnant with my rainbow baby after I lost Zion, I I didn't do many, but I did a couple of video diaries,
Hmm.
and and that's me in the moment, so you can see it. I'm crying in the videos and things, so you can see the intenseness is there, so it gives that bit of a shock factor. And I'll use pictures of like my son's funeral and things like that, and pictures of him. I don't often show pictures of him after he passed away, because that is very hard for, I think, for people to see and shocking. And I'm not sure if I feel comfortable putting people in that situation. I don't mind seeing them myself,
Hmm.
but I do think it's important because it makes it real. It's one thing talking about it and hearing statistics and everything else, whatever else, but it's actually making it real for them
Mm.
because this is real. This is our lives, and even myself, I know that I was guilty of it because I unfortunately I knew quite a few people who had suffered baby loss before I had, and don't get me wrong, as soon as I'd hear about it, my heart would go out to them. I remember having a neighbour literally lived across the road from me, and we were pregnant at the same time. And so it was very evident to me that she'd lost her baby because I was looking for weeks to see where her baby was because I'd had mine. I knew she was due to have hers. But I remember feeling
Hmm.
so awkward. I went to the shop and I brought her a card. And I only found out because one of my friend's kids was friends with her other son. So that's how I found out that way. Um, I remember going to the shop and buying her a card and writing this card out, but I was never brave enough to post it and never posted it. But now, and then the irony, a few years later, I experienced the exact same thing. And now I know how important it would have been to post that card and how much that
Hmm.
would have meant to her without even having to say anything. She would have even had to say thank you, but just to know that somebody else was thinking about her, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just there's so much to it. But so, how far? So, one, can I have two questions if you don't mind me
Yep.
asking?
Hmm.
One, when was your daughter born?
Hmm.
And two, like how far? Not that it even matters, but I do feel like people like to know these things. But how far was you into your pregnancy?
So I was 20 plus 5 days
Okay. And when was your daughter born?
in July the 9th, 2015.
2015, 10 years ago. So you've done so much since then. So
Yes.
so tell us a little bit more about your journey with Sister Circle.
So, as I said, it started 3 years ago, and it was just to create group space for women in East London who've experienced baby loss and birth trauma. And we are partnered with two psychologist teams, Tulip and Ocean, and they cover ELF and NELFT. Um, and all these women were coming through. And I was thinking, okay, I'm meant to do all these groups, but one, not all women want to be in a group straight away. They want to have a space just for themselves. And also, gosh, the waiting times for clinical support is going to be ages. So I decided to start doing some one-to-ones and I just went with it. And there's 6 sessions for 30 minutes every other week, or women can have it weekly if they prefer. And it kind of changed that offer. And I was just linking in with people, just hi, introducing myself, just opening doors. So that sister circle was very much present. And now I'm in clinics. So I do a clinic. I do two different clinics at two different hospitals. One's a loss clinic, they're both loss, but the other one's pregnancy after loss.
Okay.
And I think that's such a lovely thing to be in that space. And, the consultants are so lovely. They want to learn. They know the power, how powerful peer support is, the lived experience. And that is how they promote Sister Circle service because they know that the women would benefit from just having, even if it's just one session, just having someone to speak to, maybe going to one of their appointments with them, just so they feel they have that. Because you can get all these different appointments, you're seeing different people continuously. And that's really hard to keep telling your story over and over again. And people do not realize that. It takes a few minutes to check notes. Just check people's notes.
Yeah, please.
It makes it like you're interested in that person. Yes, you only have a 10 or 15-minute slot, but take that time. So that's something that's very important to me. So I love to talk, I love to eat, love to walk. And we've been very lucky with the groups that we've had. We've had walking groups. The women have learned how to knit, um, and things like that. And the group is centered around them. So they've just been really happy. They've set up WhatsApp groups. So they are still connecting with each other and they're each other's biggest cheerleaders. And that's lovely to see because not everybody feels comfortable sharing their stories. And I can give you an example, like medical terminations, for example.
Mm,
Women are feeling frightened to be in a lost space because they've had to make a really hard decision, but they don't want to be judged.
mm,
They wouldn't say that I've had a medical termination. So things like that, I've done a separate group for those women. So they're meeting other women that have had medical terminations, which has been really helpful. No one should feel guilty for choice because we don't know what's going on in the background. But this is one of the reason why I couldn't just have a loss or a trauma group because we need to make sure we're accommodating everyone. We have a lot of early losses. So women were thinking, well, I've had a loss at 6 weeks. I can't be with somebody that's had a loss at 20 or 38. So, we made a group for that. So it's just important that everyone feels that they've got a space that they can share with others. And I think it's so important for us to share. And
Mm.
one of the big things that has come up from Sister Circle is that people have been so happy to see someone that looks like them.
Yeah. To anyone that can't see, there's only listening. Alex is a beautiful black woman as well, Alexa. So, and it is something that, as we know, women of colour are affected by baby loss a lot more. But yeah, we are less likely to seek support. So it does help when you see somebody that looks like you. It really does make a difference from the off.
So I've had a lot of the time when I've been on the phone and they're like, they really do not want to speak to anybody. And I'm like, oh, do you want to have a video call? And then the minute they see me, there's a big smile on their face. They're like, we weren't even going to answer the phone, but we're happy that it's you at the end of it. And that's how you build. I want to know what's been happening with them. It's not just about baby loss. There's more to a woman than baby loss. That shouldn't be her identity. And I think sometimes certain professionals, they get lost in that because that's all they, okay, we're only treating loss. Well, yes, but what you will find is that the woman's going to cover multiple things. What will happen at the time of this loss? And that's something that I am, that's what my work works around because it's all good and well, we're going to treat loss. But if there's something like housing, relationship breakdown, we need to talk about that first before we can get to the loss. And I guess that kind of gets lost
Mm,
sometimes when you have kind of a one fits all model, which we
mm.
know doesn't work. So not all my women can sit on the phone with me for 30 minutes. Not all can sit in front of a computer and talk to me. They want to see me face to face, you know? And so that's very important to me. If I do have capacity, I do see the women face to face. And we've been very lucky in Sister Circle now. We now have a peer advocate. So now we can spread, that joy lots more places now because it's not just me. And I'm very happy about that. So yes, watch this space.
Yeah, great. It gives you gives you more time to be more creative. Because by the sounds of things, you're very creative in this space. And what is very evident, Alexa, is that you listen to people. Anybody around you will feel heard. The fact that you've created all these different groups shows that you're listening and you're taking into account people's personal experiences and how that impacts them. I'm a strong believer in baby loss is baby loss. I don't determine
Mm-hmm.
how it happened, what gestation it is. It's baby
Mm-hmm.
loss. And if that's how you choose to identify, because not everybody does, but if that's how you choose to identify, then it's baby loss. You lost your baby. But it does we do it to ourselves, and I always talk about this, and I'm very against it, but we still do it to ourselves. We put ourselves in a hierarchy. So like you said, there's women who've suffered early loss will look at somebody who lost their baby at 30 weeks and feel like, oh, my loss not as important as yours or not as traumatizing as yours. Well, yeah, it can be. It can be. Everyone's is trauma is down to how you take that experience in, isn't it? So, um, it is I don't genuinely believe there is a hierarchy, but we do find ourselves putting ourselves in it, and you can feel uncomfortable. You can dismiss your loss compared to somebody else's loss, or
Mm-hmm.
feel yourself shrinking in a room because you feel that other people's losses are more important or more traumatizing than yours. When actually you shouldn't you shrink because if it's impacted you, and that's neither here nor there how it's affected anybody else. It's how it affects you. So it's amazing that you've stopped and listened and created space for people
Mm-hmm.
because that is what is missing. I think because there's not enough spaces for people to feel but to grieve, especially actually during early loss, I think you're given more space the later you get down your gestation. There's people have expectations that you're going to grieve, especially if you get to have a funeral and things like that. With early loss you don't get to have those things. So actually I feel like you'd not this is my personal opinion, that is how I felt when I suffered my early losses. That space, that permission isn't there to grieve.
Mm-hmm.
um so you're giving people that permission and that space.
Absolutely. There shouldn't be, like you just said, there should not be a thing, well, okay, you've lost at 6 weeks, you've lost at 30, you don't deserve a space. But that is what's been happening. And, we are very inclusive. So it's really important that women can just, you know, refer themselves in, or early pregnancy unit can refer them in, because there is a space for you. Nobody knows how loss is going to impact them. So let's give people the space and they can decide if they want that space or not.
Yeah.
No one's, but unfortunately, people are not being given that space and they should be. Loss is loss, but I do believe at the same time that when people come and they say, right, you know, do you have a group for, TFMR? Do you have a group for early miscarriage, stillborn, neonatal? Absolutely. Let's get that group running. Let's do that. Even if I don't have it, I'll be like, yeah, let's do it. Not a problem. Because we need to create that, we want women to trust the space that they're in. And majority of the time, these spaces have not, when they think that, okay, my baby's safe, I am safe, actually has not been a safe place.
No. And also as well, taking into consideration, just listening to you, because it's, again, like we've spoke about this before, but our stories are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing, actually, when I lost my son, I searched for stories that were almost identical to mine. I mean, I could find stories about baby loss, but I wanted to hear stories that were basically the same as mine, that someone was in my situation. I don't know why. I still can't give you that answer to that, but I really was desperate to find other women that had experienced basically what I had,
Mm-hmm.
just to see that and compare with that. But I don't know if you've ever considered this, but actually, by you creating spaces for families, it makes it a bit more powerful, because I think when it comes to the NHS, from again, I'm talking from personal experience, but again, I've seen it as a common theme amongst people that I've interviewed. If you've had a traumatizing experience, and especially if you feel like things could have been done better, or if things were done differently, the outcome might be different. You lose
Mm-hmm.
faith and you lose trust in the NHS, and a barrier comes up, a begrudgment becomes up almost, so then and then when you then need to access support for your mental health, you have to then go back to the NHS, and that can be so hard and so difficult for some people, and that trust isn't there anyway. And like you said, the waiting times again is ridiculous as well.
Yeah.
So actually, to be able to go to an organization that is separate from that,
Mm-hmm.
but still works in line with them, and helps, together, supports you all together, but you are separate from
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. We are separate from the NHS. We're just partnered
Yeah,
with
and I think
those
that makes a
services.
difference, because I
Mm-hmm.
don't have to worry about not trusting the NHS, because you're not the NHS. I can trust you. You guys are dedicated for people like me. So of course I can trust you, because you've got lived experience. You know how
Mm-hmm.
it feels. So you care. Of course I can trust. These are all the thought processes that people will have rather than when you have to go to the NHS. And then the same thing happens again. You have to repeat your story over and over and over again to, I don't know how many people want to do your assessments and fill out these tick boxes. And then they're told to wait, however long, 6 months to a year. And that's with you being classed as priority because you just had a baby. You still, that's how long you have to wait. But to be able to access you guys and to get that one-on-one support, and I'll be offered different groups, and again, like, toot your own horn as well, like, because all these different services within the sister circle that's available, it's because of you as well, and the input that you've done, and listening to the women that you're working with as well, because like you said, when you started, it was just for one group, right? Is that right?
Yes, it was groups across the boroughs in East London. So one for baby loss and one for birth trauma. But, it's extended now. I'm in clinics, something that I never thought I would be in, but also being in the clinic with one of my lovely consultants is very special to me because she has not changed in all these years. And she's still one of, the women's biggest cheerleaders. And she will go against, um, people in the NHS because she doesn't tolerate things being negative and things like that because she believes in women's choice. So having that the advocacy is so powerful. And yeah, in one of the hospitals, she's one of the most amazing people that I know. So it's nice to see it.
Oh, good. And that's nice. And that kind of is like I said, your story's continuing, your daughter's story is continuing because of all the work you're doing, and you're entwined with these people that are with you from the beginning of your story as
Yeah.
well. So that is kind of beautiful.
Mhm.
to be able to do that. And also, how has it impacted your healing, shall I say, from going into the hospital, but from with a professional hat on now. You're not a patient. You're not a patient. You're a professional working alongside them. So you get to
Mhm.
see things behind the scenes as well.
Uh-uh.
So how has that impacted your healing journey?
I think for me, when it comes to healing, I did that a very long time ago around my daughter, but being on the other side where they're actually learning from me as well, I think that is very powerful. And they always say, "Oh, Alexa, do you want to chip in? If you think we're talking too much, you can just chip in at any point." That's to show you how actually they do want to hear that, they do want to hear the women's voice and they want to make sure that they can accommodate, not that they're disregarding and, okay, no, that's fine. I've only got 10 minutes. The clinics that I go into, yeah, your appointment's probably half an hour, but you're probably in there for about an hour, sometimes even longer, because we want to make sure that you're understanding what's being said. This is so important. And seeing the women's faces when I've probably seen them before they go into that appointment, and they're like, "Oh, but you know Alexa," and they're like, "Yeah." It just gives them a lot of comfort. And
Mm,
all of a sudden, all these different things things that they probably wouldn't have said and they're scared of saying, they are now saying them. And I think it's so important when you go to your appointments, write things down, no matter how silly you might think it is, write it down. Even if you can't say it, you say, "Can you please look in this book that I've got here? And these are all my concerns. Could you please answer them?" Because then okay, they're taking that, right. They need to answer your questions. And sometimes, depending on the consultant, they've already got those answers already waiting because they know it's probably the things that you're going to be asking. And just letting everyone wants to understand why they're losing. Not, it's very rare now that you'll find someone that's had one loss. But when you start talking to people, if they choose to share, they've had multiple and they've had no support. So you meet loads of women down the line. I've lost 5 times, I've lost 6 times, and then all of a sudden they're getting this bit of support here because they haven't met the pathway or they didn't have a bereavement midwife at that time.
mm,
This is not okay. There should be some support offered, and I think it comes to when you go to booking. It's not to scare women, but let them know of the different services that they can access. It's so important. Why are we waiting until someone loses a baby to start flinging these leaflets that they're not going to read
hmm
and give that to them? And now they're thinking, how do I approach, this organization? I don't want to tell my whole story. Am I going to be judged? How am I? And the first thing the women always say to me is, "Alexa, should I be feeling better now?" It's happened
mm,
a few months ago. No,
yeah,
grief comes in many different stages, many different waves. So no, you're not meant to feel all right now. But
yeah,
because we're programmed to believe that we need to get on with things, no, we are allowed to grieve. We have lost something. Some people have been waiting years to have a baby, and that's taken away from them. We don't know everybody's story. Allow people to grieve, be there for them. And this goes for families as well. Sorry, I have to talk about families and friends because
it's true.
when you lose, all of a sudden, everyone disappears. And I've got, 5 great people that I can name. They're like my sisters who just held me. I cried. They were like, "We can come to the mortuary." And one even said, "I've never been to the mortuary with you. I've never been to the mortuary before, but I'm going to come with you." So I don't know how I'm going to, but she still was willing to come. "Do you need anything?" And I could speak about my daughter continuously to them. Even to this day, they say certain things. I'm thinking, I couldn't ask for better people in my life. You guys are great. I can trust you with everything. But I do have people to this day when it's the anniversary, I'm like, "Yeah, cake, I've got cake here, I've got my balloons here, we're living our best life." They don't absolutely cry it.
Mm.
Or I get this same if someone says to me, "Oh, why are you not having any more kids?" This is a good one. And then you say to them, "I did have other kids, but they died." And you can just see the color just drain
Oh,
from
no.
their face.
I shouldn't laugh, but I do that to people sometimes. I shock them. And they're like,
And
oh.
then uh, don't ask people questions if you don't want the answer
Mm,
to them.
it's true.
This is something that I say to the women as well. If they ask you, tell them they need to be prepared. That's not for you to prepare them or sugarcoat it. They are asking you. So say it to them. People's entitlement. Be there for people. You might not know what to say, but you might not have to say anything. Give them a hug. Do you want me to bring you a bit of chocolate? Or do you want me to sit in the house and we watch Netflix? This is people's real life. Babies are dying. This kind of, oh, because it hasn't happened to me, I'm going
Mm,
to hide in the corner and let it pass. It is happening. And we need to do better in supporting our families because it's not nice when they're going through that and they're being cut off, not to talk about that. You should have moved on. You're young. We have so much gynae issues. Again, this is not talked about, but that's for another day.
mm,
We can't assume that people can just have babies. It's not always easy um, for us. So it's just kind of taking a step back and meeting somewhere where they're at. So if you don't see somebody with children and they're, with their partner or they're married and you think, oh, they're getting on, don't ask. You're not going to have, are you going to have any babies yet? What are you waiting for? Let them tell you what their journey looks like, not you assume, and then making that person feel that they obliged to answer you, and then they're feeling quite hurt inside.
mm,
Just respect people's boundaries. Don't touch people's bumps. I remember when I worked in education, and one of my colleagues just came in my room and she was like, "Can I just stay in here for a bit?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I saw her belly, but I never said to her, "Oh, congratulations," nothing. I wanted her to come and say it to me because I thought if she wanted me to know, she would say I'm pregnant. And she was like, "As you know, I'm pregnant." I said, "Oh, okay." And she said, "Someone just came up to me. They don't know my journey and they just touched my bum and telling me congratulations." And she had to really process it. And I didn't ask her what happened to her. But I thought, okay, I hear you. And I'm
mhm,
going to leave that there and give you the space. And this is the problem. Let's not feel entitled. Let people tell you. Don't assume. And just be that good person. Just be there for them. I know it's scary when we hear about baby loss. People don't want to hear that because we have this saying, oh, we don't die before our kids. Well, that is
mm,
not true in reality. For us, some of them have.
mhm.
But just leaving that door open a little bit and then educating yourself on baby loss.
Yeah. And so you don't even have to do that much, isn't it? Because the reality is there isn't anything you can do to make that person feel better. It's just about being there, you can go and sit with them in silence, sit with them in their grief.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to say anything at all, but you just being there and showing up makes all the difference. And don't judge people. Don't judge people for how they decide to manage their grief because we
Mm-hmm.
all do it in different ways, and it does something like baby loss. It can be so traumatizing. It resurfaces all the past trauma that you've experienced and everything else and all the things that you've been trying to hide from and run away from most of your life.
Mm-hmm.
They all come to the surface and you can't hide from them anymore. And people do change. They do become a different person, but it's about loving that new version of that person as well. Don't let them go because, oh, they're not the same person anymore. Of course not. Try burying your child and see if you're going to be the same person afterwards. But
Mm-hmm.
does it mean I should have less friends or less family around me because of it? No. Does it mean that you should be judged because of it? No. Accept people for who they are. And, just that is what it is. Be happy for them and be there for them as much as you can. And sometimes it's being practical. That can be more useful than anything. Cook them dinner, take food around from, tidy their house for them. If they've got other children, take them out, do stuff with them, occupy them. But, there's lots of ways that we can support each other. We don't have to fear it and stare. It's not a disease. You're not going to catch baby loss. If you go and visit a friend or a family member that's lost a baby, you're not going to catch it. Go and see them and be there for them and just be kind to them and to yourself as well because it does impact people around us as well. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that is something that we don't talk about enough, especially on this podcast. I don't. And people don't allow themselves to acknowledge, I think sometimes. Like my sister, she was there with me when I lost my son, and I
Mm-hmm.
think it impacts her more than she's allowed herself to believe.
Uh-huh.
And so it can impact you too, and that's okay as well. But I think it's nice to talk about that with each other So we know, and we're aware.
Mhm.
For me personally, it touches me to know that my son has touched more than one person. Like so. Yeah, it's that is really important. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up because we don't always talk about that, and you don't. People think you have to have a magic wand to be able to go and support somebody. You really don't. You
Mhm.
really don't. Just like you said, just go and sit next to them. My youngest daughter, she was 2.5. She could barely, speak properly, and she never said anything. She just come and sit next to me and just touch my
Yeah.
arm, and that was more than enough. You know.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I think you're totally right. People are not honest with their feelings as well because it is very traumatic, and especially if people are part of your journey, they've witnessed that as well. They're trying to protect you, but at the same time, they are going through their own grieving process. Um, and they also need support. And I
Mm,
guess, somebody out there could do that kind of support for families. That would be really impactful as well because we don't hear from them really. We
mm,
hear about partners being quite stum, or mums getting like kind of being a bit, as some people say, like overbearing and stuff when they're trying to like overcompensate because they don't know how to, you know, look after their loved one when they're grieving. But I think also with that, not everybody has a partner. And I need to say this because a lot of the time when we come onto whether it's a podcast, we go to a webinar, we're presenting and all this, we're hearing about people, my partner this and my partner that. Now we need to be mindful that not everybody has a partner for whatever reason. And it would be nice to have that representation also, because a lot of the time with women that I've supported, they're like, oh, everybody's got a partner. They don't know how that partner's treating
mm,
that person. That really crushes them. Well, that person's got their partner and they're having their babies. We do not know what's going on in people's life or every day, and people do break up.
they do, especially if they're grieving. There's a lot of them,
Yeah,
that grief separates families.
yeah, it separates because you can't communicate. There's a lot of resentment that goes into that. Um, so it's kind of thinking about that. And also, we cannot force people to take accountability, and I think that can be really hard as well. So that mindfulness, because I think when we're grieving as well, and we separate, sometimes that's not the time to talk about your loss, and
Mm,
it might take a few years. And I know many people, including myself, that can be many years, up to 20 plus years. So it's not a case of a quick fix that you two are going to talk today, but just keeping that in mind that sometimes it does take a while to come back to talk about that.
mm,
What happened, how that makes people feel. We all grieve differently, but I think when it comes to, our partners, our family, that might come out a little bit different where we think, well, we gave birth, this is what's happened to us. But actually, them on the other side watching us suffer, the crying, the trauma around that, how's that impacted them? And these are the things that we don't really think about, but that's something that we do need to think about. It's not taking it away from us,
yeah,
because yes, it is definitely happening to us, but also if they're in the room with you,
yeah.
they're actually experiencing it as well.
Yeah, you're right, and that's something that's become more and more prevalent to me recently. So last Sunday would have been my son's 5th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And as a tribute for his birthday, me and my husband recorded a podcast talking about the last 5 years and reflecting on the last 5 years. And during that podcast, some of the things that he said, he'd never said to me before. And I was in shock. I mean, I'm on camera, you can see. But I mean, and it didn't impact some of the stuff he probably has said to me before, but it didn't really impact me as much as it did when we did the recording. Maybe because it's been 5 years, my head's a bit clearer. I'm not, so far up my own arse, shall I say. I can think about other people a bit more. But like things like him saying about when I first came home from the hospital, when I cried and hearing that cry, and like he'd never heard anybody cry like that before, and how powerless he felt, and how he, and the fact that he's having to learn to live with a new person. That I've changed. He thinks that, I mean, I have changed, and in his head I've changed so much that he's now living with a different person, and he's had to learn to adjust to that. It's
Mm-hmm.
and those things never hit home to me before, really, and it was, and again, for me, the way I've noticed it, and again, I think us mothers, we are guilty for it because grief and the trauma is so intense and it's so powerful. It's so
Mm-hmm.
hard to see anything else, but we are guilty of it. And it wasn't until my niece had her first baby, and during her pregnancy, she had a few complications, and was in and out of hospital. Well, should I say, a few scares, not necessarily complications, but information was given was quite scary and was a bit worried. And that feeling for me as her auntie, not being able to do anything and just having to go and visit her in the hospital and just, give advice from the phone, or, I just felt so powerless. And I was like, this is what it felt like for you guys. Now I get it. And I was like, actually, I don't like this. I feel like this is worse than actually being that person, because even though you might feel powerless at the time and you may not advocate for yourself at the time, that choice is still there. You still can
Mhm.
do that. Whereas when it's for somebody else, you can't always just jump in and say, look, well, actually, you need to do this or you need to, because you're not, for one, you're not always even going to be there. That, or two, that person might not appreciate it. And three, that the doctors are also, unless they're going to listen to you anyway, because who are you? You're not that person going through it. But yeah, I found that really hard, and it was eye-opening for sure. Yeah, because I looked at my sister and I was like, because it was my sister's daughter, and I was like, now I know how you felt with me. Like, 'cause my sister gets, she's like, don't have any more babies because like I get anxiety every time you get pregnant. Like, so, yeah, it is actually quite not very nice at all. It really isn't. So it would be worthwhile at some point if people, us mums, could put those shoes on it and just see what it's
Mhm.
like for other people as well, because it is eye-opening, it is enlightening, and I think it just shows you the love that's there for your baby as well.
Yeah. And it's about, communication is so a difficult thing at times. And then when a loss comes, and I guess people get frightened because they think, oh, if you say something, oh, have you guys thought about couples therapy and stuff like that? And the first thing they think is, so you're trying to like imply that there's something wrong with our relationship. And it's not. It's just having that space together where you can hear each other. And it's such a powerful space. Sometimes when I'm in clinic, we'll have people come and all of a sudden, like you just said, your husband shocked you on the podcast because he was saying things. Maybe you have heard it, but they didn't connect until, 5 years later. You could really resonate with that. And all these things start coming out. And it is important, no matter, even if it's hard or you need to have space, if that person and you are open to talking about it, do. Because sometimes, it can sort things out because people break up when they've had a loss because they can't. There's resentment there. They
Mm.
can't get past it. One's grieving, the other one thinks they're not grieving, but you're both grieving.
Yeah.
You just can't see that, which is very tricky. But it is important to talk, um, if that's possible. And it does sometimes take years. Not everybody speaks straight away. So kind of having that in mind.
Yeah. And again, it could also be that at the beginning you find that you're talking loads and then suddenly it goes really quiet. But it doesn't mean to say that you can't start that talk conversation up again. That because it is, you're right, it does it is hard. And but it is so important, and that's the same message that we were given out in our podcast. Communication is so important, to try and communicate with each
Mm-hmm.
other, because things can be easily misinterpreted or easily get lost, especially like I said, when when you're grieving, you're not 100% with it, are you? Especially at the early stages. So lots of things quite easily will go over your head, especially if there's trauma involved, or things like PTSD and stuff like that as well. It impacts your memory and the way you process information. So we don't always hear what people are saying to us in the way they want us to hear it and process it at all. You could say, back in the day, you could have said something to me and I'm there fully engaged at that moment. 10 minutes later, I have completely forgotten about anything you've just told me. And it's not learning again how to understand that, so you don't take that personal. You could see
Mm-hmm.
that, oh, she doesn't care, she's not listening, she's forgotten about it already. Well, no, actually, it's not nothing to do with you. It's my problem, But it's about having that communication so you can understand each other better, to know that and not to take everything so personal, and be kind. And I think when you are grieving, we do take things quite personal. I mean, I could get quite angry, and like, you could be my friend one minute and then next I'm locking you off and never speaking to you ever again.
Mm-hmm. It's a very hard testing process and journey, and it's draining,
Mm.
um, because we feel we have to be supermom or back to our normal everyday life, and it doesn't work like that. And we need to embrace the new version of ourselves,
Mhm.
which can be very difficult if that's not. how you used to be and things like that, you know, but it is part of the process. And you are going to get people that are going to drop off.
Hmm.
And if those people are dropping off, they weren't your friends in the first place. And that can be very, very hard. But also, we don't know everybody's journey. I know I keep repeating this. Um, just from my own experience, I was showing her pictures and I was doing all of this. And one of my friends said, only because of you, I've been able to grieve because seeing you putting up pictures has made me realize I haven't grieved. Um, and now, even to this day, one of my friends said to me, I can't believe you're doing that job. I couldn't do it. And I realized I haven't grieved. And a lot of my friends have said to me now, to this day, we still haven't grieved. I just put it to the back burner. And this is a problem because it will come out somewhere. We're just
Hmm.
burying it in a nice little place, and something will eventually trigger it. And you might be, but where's this come from? I don't get it. I'm fine. And actually, we're not fine. We're just burying it
Hmm.
somewhere until the next trigger comes along. And that's what I learned. When I'm thinking I'm fine, actually, it wasn't. And it's all pregnancy related, how I've been treated. And I couldn't believe that I literally kind of protecting myself, if you like. But, you know, when my youngest was born, I relived, it was like a movie, like, the movie reels that we used to have as kids, and you can just kind of, that's how it felt. Because I thought, hold on, I dealt with that. I haven't dealt with that. So it's really important that you get the help, support that it does not need to come from a clinical professional.
Mm.
There's
There's so many
lovely
different ways,
organizations
isn't
out
there?
there. There's so many different ways. Please use them. Even if you go, you might say, look, I'm not really interested in this, but I know I have to do it. Just speak to someone.
Yeah.
You just
And
never know.
it's true. And there's other things out there as well. You don't have to speak. I've discovered MIM, medicine in movement, or movement is medicine. I can't remember which way around it is. But that you're basically dancing. But there's so much science involved in it. You are releasing trauma. You can find yourself getting emotional, but you're not having to speak. You can read, you can run, you can swim, you can paint. There's so many different ways to release. But it's about finding what works for you, isn't it? But doing
Mm-hmm.
something, ignoring it is not going to last forever. It
Mm-hmm.
will at some point resurface. I did that with my first three miscarriages, and after I lost my son, well, everything resurfaced. Everything that I'd been suppressing my whole entire life resurfaced, to be honest with you. Um, and that tends to happen a lot with trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So it is important. I think, and I agree with what you're saying. It really is important to give yourself space. And like I said, access support. It doesn't have to be clinical support. It doesn't have to be, speaking therapies. There's more than one way to do it. And even if it could just be a best friend or somebody, it could be,
Mm-hmm.
people, I've seen people using that chat GPT thing now, AI, you get a response. So, but find something. Don't bury, don't hide away. You've got nothing to hide away about, Is this you're entitled to grieve, to allow yourself that space and that time
Mm-hmm.
to do it and to do it how you choose fit. And this is why it's so amazing and so important to have people like you, Alexa, because you help people along that journey. And because of your experience, you can sometimes see things before they see them, and you can give them a bit of insight or make suggestions that you might see might be helpful for them, but they never would have known that had you not made that suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so important that you do what you're doing. And I've already met a couple of the ladies that have come into contact with you, and they sing your praises. I mean, you was up for an award, your sister was up for an award the other month as well, wasn't it? So it just shows you how great you're doing, and the fact that you're just evolving more and more shows, unfortunately, there is a need for it, but you guys are really filling that gap, and you're listening, you're specializing in that. You're specializing in baby loss support anyway, but you're making it even more of a specialized support because you're fully making it bespoke to the people that you're working with and listening to
Mm-hmm.
them. So I think it's absolutely amazing, and thank you so
Good.
much for the work that you're doing.
And thank you for having me.
And thank you for agreeing to come on here today and to tell your story. I really do appreciate it. And it is a very powerful story. And I do think it's going to really impact a lot of people.
Thank you.